Noah Green and Jordan Worth, and we are Everyman BJJ. I guess that's inspired. There's a Shakespeare inspiration behind that, which Noah has told in previous editions. We love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We love the combat sports. We love martial arts. We're wide-ranging here. We talk a lot about Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, some UFC fights, but we'll also have sort of life philosophy. We try to tie in what you learn on the mat and how that applies to life. A lot of those, of course, almost all the principles are convertible, transformable. I've been in the martial arts and wrestling and jiu-jitsu for almost 33 years. Jordan's been doing it since he was a teenager. He's been living it. Noah has served in the United States Marine Corps, and he is a blue belt in Renzo Gracie's. So it's good. We have a good mix here. We have a generational mix. We have a mix. We come from different backgrounds. If you follow us, you'll notice that, Noah has Noah's worked for big corporations. He's worked for a lot of major companies, and he's got a very, I think, relatively speaking, a very academic mindset. He's a very voracious reader, comes from a very, I would say for me, Noah, not put words, but like more of a scientific academic prism. I come from a journalism background, philosophy background, so I sort of weave in the intuition, the philosophy, the spirit, the science, and then we've got Jordan, just the young gun who represents a lot of what it's like to be in your early 20s, and just still really trying to figure it out, but he is living it. So anybody, welcome guys. Wanted to give that a little perspective here. I guess Noah, we'll start with you. What's been at the top of your mind? You're always diving in and following the news of the week. What's top of mind for you?
Decision making. So want to delve a little bit into both of your perspectives on how you approach making decisions, and have a discussion, kind of a wide range discussion on the different types of decisions you have to make, the context, and when you're dealing with uncertainty. So I'm not just talking about, there's a decision of like what we're gonna do for lunch, or that immediate, that instant decision, that snap decision, and then other decisions which take more, something that is, you need to have a lot of information to make that decision and how you approach it. So, that would be anything from, how you approach making a decision of which coach to work to train under and to affiliate yourself with, or things you want to do in a longer term fashion. So part of that decision making also ties into goal setting, but really want to just bring up your guys' perspectives on decision making, because that's kind of in jiu-jitsu, you have to weigh a lot of things. There's a lot of immediate decisions you need, and there's more long term. And sometimes how you approach these things, they get in the wrong category. You will make a long-term decision, but you're using a short-term or almost immediate gut reaction intake of information. So it's something that is always a work in process, I think, for all of us, and how we develop ourselves into how you make your decisions, and actually taking a conscientious step back and saying, wow, for me, I tend to make gut level decisions without a lot of reflection, although to others it seems like I do a lot of reflection. I'm slow to make decisions for long-term things. But to me, those kind of things are more like I already know inside of me, all the factors, and it takes actually a longer process for me to communicate those long-term factors, like to my wife, to explain to her a long-term decision, how I got there. Let me relate this back to jiu-jitsu. Frank and Jordan, whenever I was talking about what techniques and my approach to training jiu-jitsu, I wanted to start with something that made sense for my body type and a type of submission that I can work to. And my approach to jiu-jitsu was about, let me just work one submission and then work around that environment. Jordan, you may make decisions on like training under the 10th planet system and how that worked for you. We've discussed that a couple episodes ago about how you found that made fit for you. But we didn't talk about how you approach your decision making. So kind of do that.
So, whenever I'm gonna make a decision, whether it be, so I was also thinking about this too as you were talking. Like, at first I was only applying it to like life. Like, oh, what do I do before I make a big decision in life? And then I started thinking like, oh no, I'm not gonna answer it like that. I'm gonna answer it like in jiu-jitsu. And then I started to realize whether it's in jiu-jitsu or whether it's a big life decision, you should react to it about the same. You know what I mean? You should treat decisions about like big decisions, like decisions about you getting strangled or not, decisions in your life you should weigh what I'm trying to say is that the way I take any type of decision is I weigh what it's going to do for me and what the negatives are from possibly doing this thing. You know what I mean? Because I do a lot of risky things in jiu-jitsu. You know, I do a lot of things that are very, very high positive. You know what I mean? High risk, but also high reward. You know,
Yeah.
I go for something where I end up on the bottom, but a lot of the time I'm really confident in this type of submission. Not a lot of guys are used to it, so I can catch them off guard. So I'm always trying to weigh the risks versus the rewards. And then I'm always asking myself, if I do this decision, what am I going to gain and what am I going to risk? You know, if it's and now that I've gotten better at jiu-jitsu and I've progressed, I've now become brown belt. I'm trying to become more sound with my jiu-jitsu and a little less risky, because I realized when I was younger I did pretty much whatever I wanted to do in jiu-jitsu. I just didn't really have a game plan at all. I didn't really care what position I was in. I just would go wherever jiu-jitsu took me. Now I'm trying to impose my will a little bit and be a little bit more smart, you know, stay on top. I was always very, very reluctant against that. Like, oh, no, it's good. You can do things off your back. It's good. I never understood why people always praise being on top so much. And that's because there's less risk on top and there's more reward on top. You're using less energy. You're holding the guy down. There's gravity there's gravity in your favor. You know what I mean? There's just a bunch of things that are a lot better about being on top. So just to answer your question, just weighing risk versus reward. You know, like what are you going to get out of doing this decision versus how much risk is it worth?
So you have a more deliberate.
Yeah.
It is deliberate, and that also reflects. Sorry, trying to be.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get more deliberate. Exactly. I'm trying to get more effective and more think more about my jiu-jitsu and always try and make the quote unquote correct decision. You know what I mean?
Well, oh wow, yeah. Whoa, that's actually important here. Is what is the right decision?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to. You know, I was, as you're talking, one thing that jumped out at me in thinking about this is, as you get more life experience and as you lose time, your decisions are actually driven more by allocation of time, because there's a strong correlation between how much time you have and how much risk you take.
Yes.
There's, you know, but Frank, I wanted to get your impression upon this topic. You know, this is something which you guys don't. I throw this out to you, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but in a way, this is kind of fun. You don't know what I'm going to bring each week, but I wanted to open up the show with this a bit of thought conversation, because it does touch so much of our lives.
Well, it's probably one of my favorite topics, and it's interesting. You and I, Noah, are about the same age, and I consider us young. But I think a lot about decision making, right? The quality of our decision making, that's going to add up, and that's the quality of our life. And Really, I hate to be, well, I don't hate to be, I have to be, I have to go into my philosophy background and the existential and the spiritual and sort of the who am I, right? The age old question of who am I? And you start asking that question. Some people start asking that question at age 10. People are asking that question at age 15. They're asking it at 20. You're asking it at 30. You're asking it at 40. You keep asking that question. Who am I, right? Who am I? What am I here to do? What's my purpose? And I will say, as you said, it's a combination, I would say, of spiritual, of intuitive, of deep introspection, deep self-examination, and also life experience and, our environment and what we're reading. It's a combination of all those things. But I would say that, for me, I mean, I'll be a little personal here. I have a divorce, right? I never in my right mind before I got divorced. That's a very important decision. You're married, Noah, and you'll be married probably someday, Jordan. And so that's one of the most important life decisions we can make. And when I was younger, I remember being at the college at the University of Maryland, and I remember conversations would come up during class about, like, this is the divorce rate. The divorce rate of Americans keeps going up. I remember sitting there, right? Back then, the divorce rate was like 52%, right? The odds are 52%. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, what a bunch of losers, these weaklings. These people are mentally weak. They can't stick it out. They can't tough it out. And here I remember thinking, I didn't raise my hand and say that, right? But I remember thinking that, like, man, here I was, I went to church all the time, and I was sort of holier than thou. I was like, dude, they're weak. When I get married, I'm sticking it out through thick and thin, death do us part, and the whole shebang, right? And now here I am, and I have a divorce. My ex-wife and I get along well. We have a beautiful son, but I have a divorce. And it does cross my mind sometimes, like, wow. And when you leave a divorce, right, even if just like when you leave an academy, right, same thing. People leave academies, they blame instructors, they whatever. But when you leave a divorce, if you're honest with yourself, you can say, you can have a list of things, reasons it didn't work. And there's a tendency for a lot of people to blame the other person and have the list of those things. But if you're honest when you leave a divorce, right, you have to have a list for yourself. And that list can be pretty long sometimes. But things I just wouldn't do next time around, things I have to work on, right? You have that list, and I had that list. And I would say that the biggest thing why there are many things why a marriage doesn't work. There are many reasons why an academy fit won't work. There are many reasons why business, partnerships disintegrate. And I would say at the end of the day, for me, with my marriage, one of the most important decisions, it boiled down to this. I didn't really know who I was. On a deep level, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was about. And when you don't know who you are, when you don't have some strong sense of that, it's going to put you in the, it's going to bury you, and it's going to be hard to make decisions. And so one final thought, tying that together, say, well, how do you do that, Frank? Like the other side of that question is, okay, who am I? Well, that's a big question. I've been asking myself 20, 30 years. I still haven't figured that out. Where do I start? And I would say, even with like the COVID-19 times right now, right? So COVID-19, there's a lot going on. There's things that are making people angry on both sides. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be advantage and opportunity in adversity, right? As much as there's things about this right now I don't like, I'm deeply concerned with, there's always seeds of advantage and opportunity in all of this adversity. And right now, I think what is happening is, at the very least, what is essential is being illuminated to us. It may be different things for Noah. It may be different things for Jordan. It may be different things for me. But what is essential? What truly matters? What should I focus? This is a great time right now, with this great pause, right? This great time of uncertainty, to strip away and say, bro, what is really important? What really matters? What makes me really happy? Now, I was lucky because when I left my divorce, I already went through this. So in some ways, I've been prepared for the COVID-19 quasi-pause, apocalyptic pause. My minimalism the last decade has sort of prepared me for it, because I already went into those dark places. I already went into those caves. I went into those psychological caves. I went to the bottom. And then when I thought I was at bottom, I went lower. And when you go there and you strip away the layers and you say, okay, this has been taken away from you, money's been taken away from you, love's been taken away from you, friendship's been taken away from you, what you got? What are you about? What can you wrap yourself around? And when you take note of that and you start writing that down and you start looking and say, man, what really makes me happy? If you had to write down a perfect day on a piece of paper, what makes me happy? And then you go back, sort of like the Eastern philosophers, that which you are seeking is seeking you. Become what you're seeking. When you start listening in the stillness, in the pause, in the quiet of being alone and people feeling lonely at home, and you say, gosh, what is it I really feel like before I leave this earth I need to do? Is it a pen and a paper? If I don't do a pen and paper, if I don't make music, like what am I miserable if I don't do that? What's really important? For me, it's getting out in nature. For me, it's food. For me, it's pen to paper. For me, it's good conversation. For me, it's working out in the sun, right? Everybody's different. But now when you realize that this is who I am, and now you say, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, these are the things I love, my jiu-jitsu, my sunlight, my food, my writing, these are the essentials. If I have to prioritize, these are the priorities. Now you say, okay, you build a set of goals around this, say, how do I become that? And when you start to become that, everything you want starts seeking you. That which you were seeking is seeking you, as the old Eastern philosophers would say, the sages would say. And I believe that when you do that, once you get a sense of who you are, what's essential, what the priorities are, that it makes it easy. It's like the law of attraction. It makes it easy to just make decisions and be like that. You'll know when you know who you are and you know what you're about and you know what's essential, decisions move at this speed, just like a super speed grandmaster chess player or jiu-jitsu. Decisions move at this because you know what will serve you and what won't serve you. It will be most of the decisions, most of them will be at instant recognition. Now, really quick, because I know that you guy like you knows this book, Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow, right? Thinking Fast and Slow talks about how notoriously flawed human decision making is, right? Like we think we know things, we know very little, we're idiot decision makers. I agree with him in general, but I would say the X factor that I agree with him. It's a wonderful book. I've read the book, but I would still say that that's because most of us are walking around lost. We're walking around blind. We have no sense of this deeper self. And if we did, that decision making would go way up over time, combined with not just intuition, but with experience. So the starting place is who am I? What's essential? What's a priority? And then become that. Don't just read it. Live it and become that. And when you start doing that, law of attraction, what you're about, it'll be easy to be like, that girl's not for me. Final thing, you guys could run with the next 10 minutes since I'm hogging all the time. But that, like dating, I hardly ever date, right? I haven't had sex in forever. It's by intention, right? We can talk about that now. I haven't, by intention, consciously haven't had. But I rarely date. But when I do, it's never been easier to say what woman's for me because I know who I am now. I know what I'm about. I know where I'm going. And the decisions are like that. I can see a woman. The decisions are fairly instantaneous because when you have a strong sense of yourself and knowing where you're going and what you're about, you know what vibrationally fits and what doesn't. When you're lost, when you're existentially lost, when you're spiritually lost, when you have a monkey mind and you don't know who you are and you're scatterbrained and you're throwing spaghetti at walls to see what sticks, bro, the decision making is horrible. It's grueling. It's like, oh my God, you don't know what's for you because you don't know what you're about. You don't know who you are. So you sit there and it's the worst overthinking ever, right? So I'm sorry I'm taking so long because it's a great topic and it took me forever to say, wow, because you are your decisions. You are the sum total of your decisions. And how do you make better decisions? And the thing is, bro, you got to peel the layers back. And there's, ironically and poetically, there's never been a better time to peel the layers back for most people's life than right now. Like the world stopped, it paused. So right now is a great time to introspect while the world is still. Like it's a great time to listen to your inner voice and be like, who the heck am I? What the heck's essential? What am I here to do? And then become more of that. And when you become more of that, bro, the decisions start going, boom, Marcelo Garcia speed, Anyway, that's great
Solid.
talking point.
Solid. Jordan, your thoughts?
I like what he said at the end. I like the how he compared his thinking speed to Marcelo Garcia. great thinking speed, Marcelo Garcia speed. I like that.
Marcelo Garcia speed.
Marcelo Garcia decision making 101.
Yeah,
I think he knows who he is. He knows he's going to single leg you. He knows he's going to pass your guard and he knows he's going to choke you out. There's a pretty firm sense of what he wants to do. Right? He's like, I know who I am as a grappler. I know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it.
I want to throw in there another twist to this, if I may, and that's we are really poor at estimating, and I mean estimating the solidity of our assumptions. We're very poor at estimating what are the uncertainties, and we have no clue about the unknown unknowns, which is fair. There's a quadrant where it's like the things you need to know, things there are things you don't know, and I forgot the third quadrant. It's like the unknown, the known. Let's see, there's known knowns, unknown knowns, which is like I don't know any of the 10th planet system, but I know they're out there. I know there's an electric chair. I know there's all these moves, and then there are the unknown unknowns. But then I'm missing a third quadrant. No knowns, unknowns.
Maybe the unknown unknowns.
See, known, known, unknown, unknown, no. It doesn't make sense. Okay, there's one of them that doesn't make sense. But anyways, just layer over that we...
Noah.
What?
I said you're blowing my mind, Noah.
Well, there's... we're really poor.
Yeah, but Noah.
Estimating.
Okay, wait, Noah. I'm going to ask you a question.
Oh,
now,
shoot.
it's beautiful to play the skeptic, but that's easy. Give me your solution to that. What's the solution, just for people to empower people? What's the solution? What's the solution to solving that issue? If that's holding them back, if it's true that most people have poor decision making.
Thank you. Oh, good. Yeah. No, this is the point. My next point. Yeah. I was. So you pulled me right into it. One of the things I enjoy about our weekly get together is that it's a space for dialogue, and it's a space where, let me say two things. One is most decisions make themselves when you have the right amount of information. One of my senior managers at Arthur Anderson told me that. Most decisions make themselves when you have the right amount of information.
Yep.
The other thing I learned from him was the lawyer philosophy. The lawyer philosophy is they already know what they know. Mm-hmm. But the more you keep talking, the more they learn from you. Mm. So the more that I can shut myself up and listen to you and get inside your heads and understand you, the more that's three brains on one problem. So there's learning to have dialogue. Part of having dialogue is you need to have shared vision. It takes a lot of work to get shared vision. Mm-hmm. So let me explain, let's say I have a major decision to make with my wife. I already run through my Marcelo Garcia speed because I know myself already very well. I already run through that and I know what my decision, and that's my intuition, Frank. That's my intuition speaking to me because that calculus, my brain's like, done, here's the answer. However, I need to slow down and I need to create shared vision and explain to my wife using what I call as common language. Common language is whenever I say submission, when I say submission, for example, in a Jiu Jitsu move, what I learned from you, Frank, was that when you establish a position, let that person freak out because when you get mount and you feel them bucking for 10 seconds, you establish a psychological submission first. And you taught me that because you use common language. So whenever I hear you say something and then I say, well, what do you mean by that? I'm developing common language. And then when we have common language, which is an understanding, and then you and I work together through dialogue, dialogos, two languages, two thoughts. I hear what you have to say, because I already know what I think I know what I know, and what I know may be wrong. But the more input that I get from hearing you, the opportunity you get to express yourself, then I have to go through a process of saying what you said back to you, so that I understand so that creates common language. So I understand what you think. And then you and I then can set off to work on establishing shared vision. That shared vision is saying, let's do some bargaining here across the table of, well, what do we really want? Now we're talking about we, and what do you want? And what do I want? That is a process that is slow. But
Yeah,
once,
but wait, but I want to interject 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
But now it seems like we're talking about a decision making that's more communal, or I think it's really hard for people to make most decisions just for themselves. I mean, I think most people, the biggest problem they have is their own decisions just for themselves. Obviously, what I'm saying is, once we figure out how to make better decisions for ourselves, I think we're better on. I think there's a duality that when I learn what's right for me, and I make better decisions for me, I think it's going to be easier to find those groups or companies or whatever, or marital partner to make. I think that they're synergistic, that it makes it easier. But you're right. There's a whole different dynamic when you get into a group dynamic like what we're doing. There's a different collective mind, and there's a different process for decision making than if I just make my own. But I think if I learn how to make better decisions for myself, that would serve our group, a larger group, maybe a company. It'd be hard for me to be operating at a high level collectively with you guys than if I have a lost sense of myself. If I'm just like, God, my decision making is so crappy, I probably would either make a fool of myself among you guys, which I probably do sometimes anyway, but I really make a fool of myself, or just sit here and be quiet and be a pushover and let everybody else make the decision because I have no confidence in my decision, right? Like, I think when we're healthy with ourselves and we have a firm sense of ourself, I think it makes it easier, a balanced self, to go into other situations where there's more people and there's a bigger dynamic and be like, and contribute.
So finding your voice. So finding your voice is a part of this discussion then, because that which you don't know what to say. You don't know what to think yet. You don't have that, but you have some nuances. You have your intuitions. You have your summary of experience. And what I'm saying is to humble yourself, humble your ego, to find a way of sharing unshareable problems with others, and build relationships on the important stuff, and ask the other, how do you see this? What are my blind spots? What are my unknown unknowns? So the more time you spend seeking out the other's thought process and the other's insights, you start lighting the candle and bringing light into the unknown unknowns, and also the known unknowns. So the more I asked Jordan about, why do you go to the clinch after a jab? Why do you step in? Why do you step into the pocket and take the clinch when you can take a step back out and continue striking when you're jab and setting up for a combo with maybe an upper hook to step in or slip and slide in? Understanding those kind of thought process. I don't know. I'm watching the Dana White Contender Series still, like a madman. I think I'm on episode 6 or 7 of season 3. I haven't watched the first 2 seasons, and I'm watching how these fighters are making their decisions at real time. And some of that is,
yeah, but Noah, that's the low hanging fruit. It's like, this. If we're gonna sit here and criticize everything and be a skeptic, I mean, that's the what's it, Churchill, whatever. It's like the guy who's in the fire versus the guy who's sitting on his couch, armchair quarterbacking. Of course, I mean, there's no perfect day. We're flawed. We go a day where I forget to hold the door for somebody or whatever. I don't call a girl that I was talking to, and now I'm a bad whatever. I mean, like that. We're all, there's too many variables in life where we don't know everything. So we understand that. But what I'm suggesting that to me, it starts with yourself. It's true. If you want to change the world, you change yourself first. You don't worry about group dynamic first. You worry about yourself. You save yourself. You heal yourself. And then when you learn that and you become an example of that, you work outward from that. There is no like, I don't believe that like if someone's not whole and they're just going to sit in on groups and sit in on group settings, to me, that's fine. They can just sit there and keep their mouth shut. But if you're going to be, if you're at a point where you're out in front and you're a leader, you have to, you have to exemplify this. You have to live this. This is an inside job. To me, we can read all the books we want. I'm out here in nature. It's being whole and being peaceful and being the most powerful person you could be is an inside job. It's not something that you're going to sit there and go work for Microsoft or go work for Google. You might learn how to make money. You might learn how to computer program, but ultimate fulfillment is an inside job. And then, so for me, it starts with introspection, inner stuff, intuition, listening to ourselves. And then from there, if my life goal was to be a billionaire and to make a Fortune 1000 company, then my perspective might be different. I might not be existentially driven. It depends on your goals. I'm just saying for most people who aren't going to be billionaires, right, who aren't going to run a Fortune 5000 company, that for most people, it's an inside job. If you're going to be an elite fighter, the amount of time you're going to spend more time thinking and feeling as a fighter than you are training. I don't care how much you train. You're going to train 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day. Guess what? You're going to be there in your own mind, or your coach or something's in your mind most of the day. What's that going to be? That's huge. That's the inside job. The inside job is, what is that conversation with ourselves, with a coach is having with us, with a wife, with our support system? And that's even more time than the training, because you can't train. You ain't going to train 12 hours a day. You ain't training 12 hours a day. There's not happening. But so you're going to be training. You're going to have this 24/7, even when you're sleeping, baby. This baby just goes. It just goes. It goes. It goes. It goes. And there's so much going on in there that what I'm suggesting is one other thing, and we need to let Jordan
finish that one thought. Finish that one thought before you.
Jordan, you have the air after this because we shut you up. You know who I'm about to mention, though. Ray Dalio. You know Ray Dalio, right? Ray Dalio, the big hedge fund guy.
Yeah, Bridgewater.
And at Bridgewater, right? I mean, they made $1 quadrillion and they killed it. Now, for what you are describing, I wholeheartedly agree. Where at their company, and I love what I love watching the guy talk. He talks about his book Principles, right? And it deals with this basically. It ties in nicely with what Jordan was saying earlier. Risk reward. How do we calculate risk reward? How do we make great decisions so that we don't lose a bunch of money? And I love this philosophy of radical transparency, which is very rare in corporations, which is basically a culture where even the people on the bottom can come in that meeting and call BS on, this idea is flawed because of this. They encourage this honest, radical transparency, this honest criticism in the meeting. Like you said, they want to know the blind spots. Ray Dalio doesn't want you, unlike most corporations. Ray Dalio did not want you coming into the meeting and being a yes person, be like, what did I hire you for? Tell me my blind spots. Tell me what I don't know. Tell me the trouble up ahead. Tell me what could go wrong, right? Now this, for those kind of purposes, and even for jiu-jitsu, like Jordan said with his jiu-jitsu, that is a phenomenal prism for a company. That is phenomenal for even a sports team to assess those. What I am suggesting, so I am not disagreeing that is not phenomenal to do that and be like, you know what, we need all these blind spots. We need the intern could come in there and have the best idea, and Ray Dalio could be wrong, right? That's okay in a meeting in their culture, and that's beautiful. I'm all for that, right? I'm all for that. But what I am suggesting is a wholeness. I'm talking about on a life level. Even like the athletes. I mean, I don't want to mention athletes' names because we talked about some on the show. Some of them, their lives are so off track, and they make great decisions in the cage or in the ring or in the field or whatever, and they make horrible life decisions. And why? Because they're not whole. Why do people who are very rich have drug addictions and whatever, and they have all the money in the world and they're miserable and whatever, and their lives are a wreck? Because I'm talking about this seed. What I am talking about is the deeper root of who we are, which means even if I never ran a company, even if I only had 10 friends, like maybe the Tao Te Ching or something, the guy who did that, you could still feel whole. You could still find a philosophy like Eckhart Tolle in Vancouver sitting on park benches every day and saying, this is the greatest day ever. There's ducks and there's kids walking and there's my wife beside me and we're going to eat good food. What could be better than this? I'm just saying, for me, that's the ultimate end game. And I'm not saying I'm there. That's the end game, is to feel that wholeness. What you are saying applies wonderfully, Noah, to a lot of things. And some people could say to me, listen, I want to make a lot of money. I want to do this. I want to be an elite athlete. And for them, what the exact things you're talking about work wonderfully. But I am just saying that to live a whole life, there's this other piece that's an inside job that's existential, that you can read all the books you want, but until we really apply it, my experience is that we're lost. We feel very lost and very empty. And I'm making that little. That's sort of how I'm seeing it, at least.
This is the same thread that you've been using in the last few episodes that I'm familiar with, and I've been thinking about them. I've been thinking about how I could answer that. And I'm sorry, Jordan. This is a very appropriate moment for me to speak up. And I've been thinking about how do I express why I don't. Well, not why I don't spend so much time talking about inspiration or motivation or your inner flame, because that's it's so different for everyone. It is unique because you are your own little snowflake. There's only one of you in the universe, and that your own motivations for doing things, you cannot graft that onto another person. It's just fake. It doesn't work. So I don't talk about those things.
It's the realest thing in the world.
Oh no, what I'm saying is to take someone else's. Yeah. So I don't spend time on that, because I believe that everyone has their own motivations and intuition, and I believe that that's already there. That is already like sine qua non, without which there is not. If you don't have that intuition, if you don't have the inner flame, none of this other stuff that I talk about, this systematic approach.
How many people do you know that are suicidal, depressed, or seriously bummed out in the last 5 years? How many people do you know, last 10 years, how many people do you know that are lost, that are miserable?
A couple, a few.
A lot. A lot.
Well, I can't get inside their head to know, really. I watched The Joker last night with my wife.
It's a great movie.
She wanted to see it, and she's like, that was much darker than I expected. I'm like, well, I didn't want to tell you, but I'll let you find out. And Frank, for your benefit, it's just a very demented soul.
I read the reviews. I mean, come on,
it was great. It was great.
You haven't seen the movie, Frank?
It was great. But I just wanted to answer. I just wanted to answer you, Frank, in this multi-episode thread that you've been pulling on. Just to recap that, I don't speak about intuition because it is unique to the person. And I believe that we all have that, and we should do some more talks. I should spend more time talking and delving into that subject matter with you guys. I just don't go there because I think that's like very, that is really powerful stuff. I mean, that is fierce. That's probably grabbing grabbing radioactive material and trying to. Oh, I don't hear you, Jordan. Guys, you there? I don't hear you. Uh-oh. Frank, you there? Looks like I lost someone here. Hey, Jordan. Jordan, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Frank's frozen, so I don't. It looks like we lost him in this feed. Let me change something here real quick.
Man, everything was working so good.
Yeah, we were going well. It looks like we lost Frank here. I hope
now I
he,
have like a echo.
oh no. I'm trying to see if I can bring Frank back. I think we lost Frank.
No.
Yeah. Frank's frozen.
Oh man.
Oh, that yeah. I don't know. I hope you got the rest of what I was saying. Yeah, looks like we lost Frank. Frankie! Oh, here he comes back. Let's see.
Man, this echo's making it about.
Is it?
It's weird, dude.
Yeah. Man. Can you hear me still, or are you getting echoes? How about that? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I don't hear you. It looks like we lost the show. Guys will come back in a moment. Just to bear with me. Let's see if I'm still streaming. Hi.
Hey.
Oh man, that's messed up.
What happened?
I don't know. It's just the technology here. Let me see if we're still streaming.
Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, this is totally beyond our control. I'm checking to see if we're still streaming here real quick. It says we're live.
Oh.
Let me check the video.
Yeah, man. It was making me trip out. Every single thing that was said or happened was happening double. So everything was like, doo, like just had like an intense echo. Every single thing was happening.
You were just getting double the medicine.
Man, it was too much for my brain to handle. I had to leave, and then it was all silent. All the audio got cut out.
All right, well, we're still streaming. And here comes Frank.
We're back. We're gonna get back in this train strong, guys. We're coming back.
Stand by. I'm gonna rebuild this frame. Frank.
Yeah, back, sorry. Guys. I don't know what happened. I lost internet connection on my PC. So.
Oh, is that? Oh, well, you know what? It's kind of a cascade effect here. I think it's just effect, but we're still streaming, so the show's still on.
Yeah, we're back, stronger than ever, guys. We're still here.
I was trying to say so much, and of course, it happens whenever I'm, in the middle of a thought. So I can't reproduce that. So, anyways, what was the last you heard? And I'll put a code on it.
All, I can't see you guys. Is there can you guys see me okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
I can see you. You can't see us?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't need to see you guys.
Yeah. What was the last you heard of me saying, Frank?
Something to the effect of you've thought about this because you hear me bring it up and you think that intuition is just such a personal subjective thing that you know, I don't think so. Listen, I think that spiritual is the most important, and it's not coming from a space of religiosity. It's just coming from a space of introspection. It's coming from a space of our place in the universe. Why are we here? How do we get here? What's the purpose? What's the meaning? And I think how you answer the spiritual questions, just, I don't know. I think that the biggest problem in the world right now, this is me, with everything going on, I think it's just that people are spiritually lost and people have a spiritual void. I think we're going in a direction of great artificial, ever more chemical, ever more artificial. I think we're dehumanizing people. And so that's why I bring it up a lot, is because I think that we need to go back in the opposite direction. I'm not saying that just being human and primal is the answer. I'm not saying that. I'm saying a balance between science and technology and those things, and spirit and intuition. I'm talking about a balance. I think we've gone way off the tracks, and I think that that's part of the reason we have so many people that feel lost and depressed and anxious, and just art. It's just, everything is just artificial. The food's fake. Everything's fake now. It's like, lawns are fake, body parts are fake, everything's fake. It's like, special effects, or all the apps, everything's fake now. It's like, just something that's human and beautiful in us. I'm talking about a return and an embracing of that, and that's why I bring it up. But yeah, I didn't hear what you said beyond that.
I'm just gonna. We'll have to delve into it another time. It's just when you start dealing with that, it's very powerful. It's very powerful, I think.
And Noah, really, by the way, you know that I love you, and so this is not. It's okay, just like Ray Dalio would say. It's okay that we disagree on this. This is. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not here to say I'm right. You're a very smart guy. You're my friend. I love you unconditionally. That's fine. I'm just saying that that's my prism. And I do think that both of us, it has application for the mat, because, if you're, the more whole you are as a person, however you're getting there, if you're getting there by reading science books or science fiction or whatever, the more whole that we feel, some inner space in us, then I just think the more confident, and it frees you up to flow and operate at higher levels. I mean, we're talking about how do we hit a flow state? How do we hit a balance? I'm just talking about my truth and what I see. And you're talking about another path to it. And I'm not saying that way wouldn't work. I'm not saying that your way for an optimal state of mind, or a flow state, or optimal production, or optimal team unity, I'm not saying that wouldn't work. I'm just giving my perspective, that's the space I come from. That's beautiful that you see it different and I see it different, and at least I do contemplate things you say. I'm not sitting here trying to be like, Frank's right and Frank knows everything, and I mean, I have a lot of flaws myself, so I'm just saying that that's the place that I come from, today at least.
Jordan, I'm out of words right now.
Do you guys know about the Anunnaki?
The what?
Frank laughs because he knows.
The what?
I said the Anunnaki. Oh.
You want to go there?
Frank talks, no. Well, I'll touch it for like 30 seconds. But Frank was talking about like having like purpose in life and like where we came from and stuff like that. And I was gonna interrupt him and say we came here from the Anunnaki to mine gold. But that's the whole.
Sounds like some Eddie Bravo stuff.
That's why 10th Planet is called 10th Planet. 10th Planet. So have you heard? Like, there's a real thing. It's like scientists really believe it exists. They just don't think that there's aliens on there called the Anunnaki. But there's really a planet called like Planet X that has like a different orbit than our planets that scientists really believe is out there. It's supposed to be like the 10th planet. Okay. And Planet Nibiru, right? And that's why the 10th Planet Forum is called the Nibiru Forum. And yeah, like supposedly like there's like the first civilization ever, like the Sumerian Civilization, had like a creation story, and they said that like some species or like some people came down from like this 10th planet to like, and they created them. They gave them like math, science, agriculture, arts, all this stuff, and they said they wanted them to mine gold because on their planet they didn't have gold, and they like went to the sun every like few thousand years, and their planet got destroyed by the sun or like something crazy like that. But
this sounds like Scientology or something.
Yeah, it's a crazy idea, but it's interesting because it's like one of the first creation stories of humanity. So I do think it's interesting, but that's about all I'll touch base on that.
Is this Ron Hubbard stuff? Is
I
this
don't think so. No.
okay? So this isn't Scientology then.
No, this isn't. Like I said, this isn't Scientology or some crazy cult. No, most people don't even know about this or even really think it's real.
How do you spell that word?
Which one, Anunnaki or
yeah,
Sumerian?
Anunnaki. Let's start.
A-N-N-U A-N-U Anu A-N-U-N-A-K-I. Anunnaki.
Okay.
A-N-U-N-A-K-I, I think.
All right.
Something like that. But the more interesting thing is the Sumerian Civilization. If you don't know anything about the Sumerian Civilization, it's super, super interesting. There was like, from nothing, we didn't really have any civilizations, came the Sumerian Civilization. All of a sudden, there was trade routes in the desert, there was agriculture, there was arts, there was science. We had written language. There was like, I forgot what it's called, but they're like the first written language. It's like looks like arrows and like symbols and stuff like that. They wrote down there that's the other crazy thing. Everybody at that time thought the Earth was flat. They had like detailed maps of the solar system. They knew how big the planets were according to other planets. They knew they had maps of the solar system and stuff like that. And their creation story, their idea of how they got all of this math and science and ability to have a functioning society is they say these people came down from a different planet and they made them in their being, and like they made them in the image of them, and then they gave them all this information and all this ability to fend for themselves in order to mine gold. And then they're going to mine gold for them, and they come around every so often and they take the gold, and then they live on their happy lives. And that's one of the first creation stories. Supposedly it predates Christianity and all sorts of other religions.
How do you connect with that? How do you connect with that story other than just being a...
All right, so we're going to go there. All right.
Yeah, I went there. I figured I would open up that pinata.
So I grew up very, very Christian. Both my parents are still to this day like devout Christians. My mom goes to church every single Sunday. She's a huge part of the church. I was in Sunday school every single Sunday. I grew up like extremely Christian, you know what I mean? Like I know all the Bible stories. I was born and raised extremely Christian. And then by the time I was about like 18, 19, I kind of started to realize like I don't really believe in this. Like I don't really believe in any of this. It's like, what do I believe? You know? And so I started like trying to think what I personally believed. And this is also around the time that I was already training Jiu Jitsu and I was studying the 10th Planet System thoroughly. And I was watching a lot of the Joe Rogan Experience. And so my personal two ideas where we came from as a species, as humanity, as a people, whatever you want to call us, is either the story of the Sumerians, the Anunnaki, or the Stoned Ape theory, Terence McKenna's theory.
Terence McKenna, yeah.
Yeah. You know about the Stoned Ape theory, right? You've heard of this?
I have heard a few of the Joe Rogan Experience podcasts where he's explained that before, and it's fascinating.
Really fascinating. If you actually like look into
fascinating.
It, look into it. If you actually look into it, it's very, very, very interesting. Like there's a lot of things to back it up. There's a lot of things that explain, because that's the main thing. Is I want explanations. Like I have a mind that I want to understand what is going on, at least to a degree. You know what I mean? If there's like, that was the only always an issue I had with all religion, not just Christianity. Is I had a bunch of religions with religion and Christianity, but I won't touch on this too much. But one of the main religions I had with it is whenever I had like a thought-provoking question to my pastors or to my parents, they would always be like, "Oh, you just have to have faith. You just have to believe." I'd be like, "Mom, how did Noah survive inside that fish for a month?" And she'd be like, "Oh, God saved him, Jordan. You just gotta believe." And I'd be like, "Mom, what are you talking about? Like, you know, like there wouldn't be any real explanation for it, you know." And then also I started training jiu-jitsu, and I didn't really have any contact or really I just didn't really have any. I didn't know any Muslims, or I didn't have any contact with any Muslims at all in my life until I started training jiu-jitsu, and my first coach was a Muslim guy. And he didn't really talk about his religion at all ever really too much, but I started like contemplating religion. I had always known about like the Muslims and the Christians fighting each other, and the Muslims and the Jews, and like all these wars on religion and stuff like that. And then I started thinking about how like even like tribes and like little islands, like no matter where you go, even on like a little tiny island, they're gonna have their own creation story, their own idea of like a god, their own idea of like a spiritual afterlife, a heaven and a hell. There's always an idea of like something like that going on. But 1/3 of the planet believes it's Christian. 1/3 of the planet believes it's Muslim. Another third of the planet believes it's Jewish. The Asians believe it's like Hinduism and Buddhism. You know what I mean? That I started like really contemplating things, and I started realizing that humans don't know what's going on. Everybody's confused. There's not really one answer. You know what I mean? And I started really like realizing like, man, like there's probably something going on. Like I still to this day believe in like the idea of like a god or like something going on, like an afterlife. I just think humans don't know. You know what I mean? Humans don't have the ability to figure out what's going on, and that's where religion comes from. And I started to tamper with different psychedelics and different things in my late teens, 18, 19, and I started to realize like, man, for one, me personally, I'm not religious. I'm not knocking anybody who is religious because I totally understand it. I do think there is something going on there. There is for sure something going on that we can't explain. I just think that religion and like sacred like texts and stuff like that, like it just gets too weird for me. So I kind of started to just self think upon myself, and I'm got my own ideas on life now. But yeah, my two ideas where we came from as humans is the Sumerians, the Anunnaki, or the Stone Ape theory. But I also say this is one thing that I also say a lot too. In order to begin to understand, you have to understand that you don't know anything. You know what I mean? So I also understand that I'm completely wrong always with whatever I'm saying. I don't know what I'm saying. You know what I mean? I'm just saying what I personally believe is right. But I acknowledge that I don't know what is right. Nobody really knows what is right. In order to begin to understand, you have to understand that you don't really understand anything.
I connect with you so well on that sentiment.
Guys,
So that's where I approach things. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Religion aside, if we just had a world, I mean, this world will never exist, and it never has. But just to show you the universality, there's a universalness, which is when I talk about spiritual stuff, I'm not endorsing any religion or whatever. There's just so many holes. Even if somebody, no matter what religion you believe, there's a heck of a lot more you don't know than you do know. Right? I mean, there's just too much history and too much of a matrix to it all that none of us has any comprehension of. It's very hard. But there is a universalness.
Religious.
Yeah, there is a universalness. For instance, in a utopia, if we got rid of all violence, and we got rid of all lying, and we got rid of all stealing and dishonesty and all murder, we get rid of all violence, all lying, all dishonesty, all corruption, and then you could have people of many different religions. How would the world look just with that alone? If you just rid of it, it would never happen. But most of us would agree, at least publicly, hey, we don't want violence, but then there'll be a but, right? But blank, but if, right? But if, yeah, we know the way the world is, so we're like, well, we got to leave room for violence, Frank, because somebody might come along and blank. But when I say the spiritual place, I'm assuming the place that's in all of us that is this just me. That's like that really doesn't want to be violent, that wants peace, that wants to be the highest self, that doesn't want to lie, that wants to go into meetings and say, this is our brand and it's really who we are. And we're not lying to anybody. This is really what we believe in. I'm talking about coming from that space. Now, the world can be very, very muddy, and a lot of things can happen, and people get to fighting over religious doctrine and this and that. And then it devolves and it's tense and there's fighting and there were wars and there were whatever. And I'm just looking at I'm not trying to tell anybody like any religious doctrine. I think that's a mistake. I don't like dogma. I don't like religious dogma. I do not like, and you know I'm a man of spirit. No, I don't like religious. I don't. So I'm not a fan of like holier than thou-ness. I'm just talking about a universal sense of getting to our best self, which is our self that's not violent, that's not forcing things on people, that's not killing people, that's not lying, that's not being corrupt, that's not being mass manipulation, mass propaganda. I'm basically talking about 5 or 6 things that I think have run the world into a like and made a lot of people scared and just create conditions where I'm talking about hitting a spiritual place where you try to find in you something that rises above that. And I know that's a little deep, but that's what I'm talking about. I'm not sitting here by any means. You're never going to hear me endorsing a religion and whatever. I get it. Like, yeah. I'm talking about that spiritual place that is peaceful, that is light, that is cheesy for us in fighting, but that's literally love. That's like that Noah can disagree with me and I can unconditionally say, hey, man, I love you. You know, you're allowed to think different. Like, that's a real love, you know? Like, I'm talking about that. I'm talking about being out in nature and thinking about nice things and not beating people up and shooting people and, you know, whatever. And it's cheesy, but I think the world needs more of it. It's kind of cheesy, but I just think the world needs more of it. And I think we're more whole and I think we're more high functioning from that place. I do. And that's what I mean. So I know it sounds cheesy, but that's the mark that I'm aiming for at least. And, you know, so that's where I am in my life now. And I'm just trying to figure it out, but that's where I am.
For the past 10 years, I've found myself in more unstable, uncertain times in my life than I did for the life up until that point. And it's either because my perception of things and reality has gotten better or things have gotten worse for me personally. So like you, Frank, I went through some divorce and unemployment, underemployment, depression, all those kind of fun things that one tends to go through, I think, in their 30s and 40s. And you know, there's a kind of a U shape of things, I would say, in your life where things get worse and worse and worse and worse until you hit that point, and then things start to improve, or just your perception of what you've taken has gotten sharper and more keen into what is. So my goal is not to be happy. That's no longer my goal. I don't seek happiness. I seek more of equanimity, which is equanimity during turbulence. You know, don't be my friend whenever we both have money and we have secure relationships and we have a roof over our head. Show me your friendship. Show me what you got whenever you're in trouble with the law or if there's things going on. I want equanimity then. I want to see where you're down in the cards and it's the third round and you got a minute left and all you can hear from that corner is go, don't wait for it, go, you've got to win this is your last 60 seconds, go. That, and you are on the bottom getting pummeled. And I want to see your equanimity then. I want to see where your strength is then. Because it's convenient. It's convenient to seek happiness when things are well. Right now, and Frank, I would say, you know, your perception of, you know, like things are more artificial, and you know, all those things you said earlier. I think maybe your perception ability has gone up a lot more. It's just you're seeing the bullshit better than ever than you did before. You're just seeing it. You're seeing it right through. You're seeing caricatures of people and not bringing their authentic selves. It took me a lot of loss to get in touch with being real. I was very scared to put myself out on the internet, but with this podcast, because I was fearful of being judged. Oh, well, at some point you got to start living your life and start making those choices, and that relates to the intuition.
Get judged a lot on the internet.
That relates to the intuition aspect that you're talking about, Frank. Is like at some point you need to step in the ring, and Theodore Roosevelt had a great quote about the man in the ring. Look it up.
Yeah. Sorry, and I misquoted. I said Churchill, and it was Roosevelt. Yeah, that's the correct attribution.
Teddy Roosevelt was a catch wrestler.
Yeah, and he brought judoka into the White House.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Drysdale mentions him. I think he might mention him in his new documentary. Drysdale did a documentary.
Is that thing? When is that thing coming out? Your buddies with Drysdale.
It's coming out soon. I actually got to look at the script. I got to play a little mini role in which script, or whatever. I don't know what they went with, but I got to get a sneak peek at the script, which was pretty cool. So.
Man, my other coach, Rich Farrell, shout out Rich Farrell. He's been sending me stuff about that documentary for like 2 years now. He's known about it. He's been sending me stuff about it. It seems like, dude, he's been hyping me up.
They got a lot of old timers. They got a lot of dudes that are like dying, right? Like right before
they got like that old. He was sending me a video of like that old guy in Brazil, like the guy with the red belt. He's got to be like 80 years old. He's like super frail, like the old, super old guy. And Drysdale was doing some techniques with him, and he's showing him like different wrist locks and stuff. It was so cool. I don't know the guy's name, but man, he's such an old guy. He had to have been doing jiu-jitsu forever.
Well, listen, guys, we can keep going on. It's a beautiful day here in Utah, and I'm I'm a sun freak, so I got to get some sun. I got to go buy some organic, but very productive conversation. We at some point we maybe in the next podcast or future ones we have to talk about what does the post Jiu-Jitsu Academy look like after this. I think we're going to see a lot of changes. I think that probably there's a lot of fear, but we'll talk about that, what it's going to look like, what we think it's going to look like. And in the meantime, I hope you guys, it's always good to see you guys. We will be back for our loyal viewers out there. We record every Sunday live on YouTube, 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's Everyman BJJ. Email everymanbjj@gmail.com. Everyman BJJ on the different social media channels, Facebook and so forth, Instagram. That's it. If you have any questions, you want us to entertain a topic, you have a positive sort of a constructive criticism, we welcome that to email that to us. Noah, it's been a pleasure. Happy rest of the Sunday for you. Jordan, happy training and living to you too, my brother.
Have a good day, guys.
You guys have a great rest of the day. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Later.
Bye.